All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be breaking down Week 3 in college football. Kind of like Week 1, it was a big struggle for the powerhouses. Multiple top-heavy playoff contenders struggled. First, we'll go ahead and get started with Alabama. They held off Florida in Gainesville by a score of 31-29. They started off hot. They were up 21-3 at the end of the first quarter. Offense could not be stopped. Florida couldn't do anything offensively. Emory Jones, his lone interception came in the first quarter. After that, very sluggish for Alabama. Their offense, incredibly stale, only scored 10 the remainder of the game. Florida, they got their running game going significantly. And Alabama's defense, as we just noted, they got torched on the ground. Coming into the game, I felt Florida would run the ball much better than people anticipated. And they did it better than even I expected them to. 245 yards on 43 touches, 4 touchdowns. It doesn't matter who they throw out there. Emory Jones, Malik Davis, Naquan Wright. They all had success. And then Damian Pierce, he had 2 touchdowns as well. So they ran the ball with ease on Alabama. Emory Jones, he was inconsistent at times. He made some good throws. They converted a lot. Alabama, though, it was the opposite for them. Their offense couldn't run the ball. It's been a big struggle for them. I don't think they ran for over 150 yards yet this season. If they have, it's been a little bit over. 91 yards and a touchdown, only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. This new offensive line is taking a minute to break in for Alabama. They got, 4 new starters on this unit. So it's been a little inconsistent. Florida, they were able to get some pass rush in there because after the first quarter, they had 3 scoring drives. They had 3 straight 3-and-outs there as well. They couldn't establish any consistency or efficiency, that is. Bryce Young, 240 yards and 3 touchdowns, but in terms of yards per pass, Florida outgained them in that area just by a little bit. 6.9 yards per attempt. Bryce Young, they weren't looking to go deep. I felt like they would have more success on this young Florida secondary with the vertical seam routes. I thought they would have more separation on their comebacks and their curls. That wasn't the case whatsoever. They didn't gain a lot of separation throughout the day. Florida struggled to tackle at times, though, when they got the receivers in space, when Williams and Mechie were in space. Brian Robinson and the running backs, those guys broke a lot of tackles. They're tough guys to bring down. Overall, this is a very encouraging performance for Florida. They had more first downs than Alabama. They had more yards by a good chunk. I feel like if there was 5 more minutes in this game, they probably would have won the game because, they scored late. 2-point conversion was no good. They just didn't have enough time left. But Alabama overall, just a sluggish performance. They didn't have any turnovers, but they had 11 penalties. And their defense just got torched on the ground. Florida in the interior running game was very good, made plays on the edge as well. Very encouraging. Florida, if anything, I wouldn't be shocked if they moved up in the rankings. They shouldn't go anywhere. That was a very impressive performance, especially for a team that just lost their top linebacker in Ventrell Miller. QB play has been pretty stagnant early on in the season. So this is a very impressive performance for Florida. One thing I mentioned early in the offseason is this is when you want to get Alabama. In Week 3 at home, this is a perfect opportunity for them. I picked Alabama to win by a good, comfortable margin, but it's because there was a lot of unknown question marks with Florida. They played 2 teams in-state, a group of 5 teams in-state to kick off the year, and they lost a lot. So Dan Mullen's doing a great job with this team, very encouraging. UCLA, they were upset by Fresno State late Saturday night. In the Sunday morning, if you're on the East Coast, I feel like I picked UCLA to cover in this game. I feel like the Oregon game would have their attention. They'd be able to come into this ball game, and I felt like they would be prepared. And they weren't. They were down. They were losing for most of this game. Very resilient in the fourth quarter when they scored 20 points. But their defense, a lot of people were overreacting to UCLA's first couple of games, and I felt like their defense, the jury was still kind of out on them. And they got absolutely throttled, almost 600 yards allowed in this game. Jake Hayner, an absolute legendary performance. In pain, he was able to lead them to back-to-back touchdown drives, with the last one being with less than a minute to go. 455 yards, 2 scores. Hayner is just phenomenal. This is a good talent, though. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks heading into the year. I think I had him top 15 when I did my QB power rankings. He had a very good season last fall. Nice running back duo. Jordan Mims didn't touch the ball at all, but Ronnie Rivers had 136, 2 scores. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he kept him in this game. I love how he played. He's really stepping up this year. They were able to weather the heavy storm from the Bulldogs in the fourth quarter, though they were down for most of the game. Very resilient effort. They were down by 2 scores at one point. And then Fresno State was in goal-to-go situation. They made a mistake. They could have took a big lead in this game. They made some mistakes. They were unable to do that, but Fresno State probably should have won this game by a lot more points than they did. UCLA was just a very disappointing performance. Their secondary last year was a big concern. They almost allowed 500 in this game. So they have a lot of work to continue to do. This team will now enter conference play with a loss on the resume to Fresno State and a terrible defensive performance. So a lot to work on for UCLA and Chip Kelly. This is still a good football team, I would say, though. Their offense, the resiliency, they've got some nice chemistry going with Cam Brown, Kyle Phillips. And DTR is really stepping up and making plays this year with his legs and his arms. So, and they still have a nice running back duo. They didn't try running the ball very well. Only 15 carries between those two running backs, and Britton Brown, Zach Charbonnet. So I want to see them get more involved in situations like this. Lean on your running game, because when they got down, that's just not something they looked to do. They were also on the field a lot. I think it was over 80 plays for the UCLA defense. Time of possession got dominated by Fresno State. So just overall poor performance by them. I thought they'd be prepared. I was wrong. So shout out to Fresno State. They're a great football team. Hayner, love watching this kid play, and that performance is going to live on for quite some time. So Arizona State also got knocked off by BYU. The Cougars continue to play great football at home. They were pretty even in yardage totals, but Jaron Hall made the right plays. Arizona State was unable to capitalize on some opportunities they had. They had a lot of penalties. I don't remember the exact amount, but they had a lot of penalties. That crowd in Provo at one point had 2 or 3 straight false starts. Arizona State had to go under center. That's how bad it was. And then Daniels got sacked when he went under center. So it was just a terrible sequence of events. BYU with a nice little ball club here. They're now inside the top 20 in the rankings. So BYU has an opportunity to have a nice season here. After COVID last year, their schedule got really mixed up, so a lot of people felt this team was not very deserving of everything they got. But this year they have a schedule to prove that, and so far they've beaten 3 straight Pac-12 South opponents. So credit is due to BYU. This is a really good football team, and Jaron Hall is a very fun player to watch. I think as he continues to grow, he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. You look at West Virginia and Virginia Tech. WVU was the favorite in this game. They were able to outlast Virginia Tech. They're up 27-7 at one point, and they almost blew it late. They had a 2-score lead with, I think it was a 13-point lead with less than 4 minutes to go. Virginia Tech scored, and then West Virginia, Jared Doege was picked off on a failed screen pass that they tried to convert on late in the game. It set Virginia Tech up in the red zone. They were unable to convert. WVU came up with the 4th down stop. Overall, this is a very good game for West Virginia. Doege made a lot of great plays downfield. He had 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. One thing I talked about coming into this game was, when VT, they have a good secondary, but when they played North Carolina, they're playing a team that didn't have a lot of continuity. They had a very young, youthful receiving core, and West Virginia didn't have that problem. These guys all have pretty extensive work together. Bryce Ford-Wheaton had a nice touchdown grab. Sam James had a very good play as well. He was able to break a couple tackles and score. And then, so that's something that was very key for this passing game. But overall, Letty Brown was the story of the show. Hit an 80-yard touchdown on his first carry of the game. Ended the day with 161 on 19 touches. Virginia Tech, this was a very disappointing performance for them. Their offensive line was very stagnant. They could not run the ball whatsoever. 106 yards and a touchdown. And, that's kind of a concern for me coming into this game because against North Carolina, they were so good early on. But over the course of the second half, they were not good running the ball whatsoever. I felt like they would have more success in the passing game. Burmeister, he made some really good plays, even with his legs and with his arm, but overall they didn't have the consistency I was looking for in this game. Because WVU, when they played Maryland, they gave them a lot of big passing plays. They adjusted very well, but at the end of the game, that talented receiving core still diced them up, and Trey Turner and Travion Robinson, they provide that. But you didn't see them get a lot of touches. Robinson had a very good game, but Turner, he was not involved. I think he got injured sometime in the first half, and I don't know if he came back or not. But overall, neither of those guys were the leading receivers. They ended up being Caleb Smith. Again, the offensive line was not very good. WVU really controlled this game from start to finish. If VT kept battling back, 30 for 12 on third downs though for West Virginia. So it wasn't a perfect performance, but they did control this one from start to finish. Really did a nice job in the trenches. And, again, 2 turnovers. So West Virginia, they're able to win games when they don't play their best. This is going to be a good football team moving forward as they continue to grow. I'd like to see some more consistency out of Virginia Tech, though, especially in the ground game because this offensive line, it's a big unit. They got some talented players. So as they dive nose first in the conference play, that's some things I'm going to look for them to improve on. And then just making less mistakes as well. They had a couple of busts in the back end. On that touchdown, Ford Wheaton caught. There was an offsides on. He still caught a touchdown, but still had some just silly mistakes that Virginia Tech has. So they're going to have to clean that up as they go into conference play. But overall, good win for West Virginia. Looking at Oklahoma and Nebraska, rivalry renewed. Sooners won 23-16, but another lackluster performance from the Sooners, mainly on offense. 22.5-point favorites, and they were unable to put any distance between themselves. It was 7-3 at the half. This offense has remained incredibly inefficient. They had over 400 yards. Eric Gray had some nice runs, but only 214 yards passing. The Sooners ran for 194 yards. They had 2 scores, Brooks and Gray. That duo starting to get things cooking up. Rattler made some impressive plays with his leg as well. So overall, the ground game was good, but this passing attack, even with all the receivers they have and the quarterback they have, it's just not been very effective. That was the big story against Tulane. They only scored once in that second half in that game. They just couldn't move anything. Very stale, very stagnant. Nebraska, on the other hand, it was nice to see them able to hang tough for once. Scott Frost, that's the biggest question mark with his teams. Can they hang in there? Can they battle back for their coach? Adrian Martinez, he did really everything he could. He ran the ball. He ran for a score, threw for a score, made some bad plays, made some good plays. I'd say this is an encouraging performance for Nebraska, but this is a game Oklahoma should have won by a lot more because Nebraska early on in the year, their offense has just not been very good. It was better against Buffalo. They had 500-plus yards. And their defense isn't no slouch. JoJo Domain, Deontay Williams, Ben Stilley. They have some good players, but the way they've played early on the year wouldn't suggest that this game should be close for Oklahoma, especially in Norman. So Oklahoma moving forward, their defense played very well, very encouraging there, because that's been their biggest knock, is their defense. It looked good in week 1 against Tulane, and then the second half it kind of fell apart. So they're able to hold up for the entirety of the game. They're very good on 3rd and 4th down, 7 of 17 in that area for Nebraska. So, and then the amazing interception as well by DJ Graham. So they were able to hold up for an entire 60 minutes, which is very encouraging. But because I trust Lincoln Riley to get this offense figured out. I think they will eventually. But right now it's kind of the same problems they were last year's offense. Remember against Kansas State they were up big, and they blew a lead and they lost, and their offense couldn't do anything late in the game. That's kind of the concern here, because your defense hold up from week to week while your offense tries to figure things out. Because if they go down late in the fourth quarter, I have zero confidence right now in this offense being able to do anything, because it's very reminiscent of it was in 2020. So Oklahoma, I believe they'll figure things out, but I'd be a little on edge if I was the Sooners fans right now. Michigan State, they walked into Miami Gardens, and they were able to a great second half. It allowed them to pull away from Miami. Another disappointing performance from the Hurricanes and Manny Diaz. Coming into this game, I felt like Michigan State had a phenomenal edge advantage. I feel like in the trenches they were much enhanced, far more ahead, I guess you could say, of Miami. Just the overall consistency and physicality. In Miami's defense, they made some good plays. They were consistently in the backfield. That's been their best part of the defense all year long so far, is their ability to get tackles for loss, get sacks. And they did that. But this defense is so incredibly inconsistent. It just doesn't make any sense. Peyton Thorne, 261, 4 scores. Multiple big plays allowed in the passing game and the running game. They had over 450 yards of offense, but it feels like it was a lot more. One drive they look good, the next they don't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just very, very strange. Derek King threw the ball 59 times. They couldn't run the ball at all again. And they took advantage of a lot of soft coverage. Charleston Rambo, 156 yards, 2 scores in this game. He had a great game. They had a lot of soft coverage, a lot of curl routes that he was able to take advantage of. King almost had 400 passing yards himself. He had 2 bad interceptions, though. Miami, they also had a missed field goal, a chip shot early in the game. 4 total turnovers for Miami. Just an ugly performance for the Hurricanes. They played us a pretty good first half. They trailed 10-7, and then after that, it was 28-10 the rest of the way for the Spartans. Very impressed. I'm not taking anything away from Michigan State, though, because they're a very good football team. I felt like that Miami would be able to take advantage of that youthful secondary, and that allowed them to make some plays that would win them this game. And they were able to take advantage of the youthful secondary for the most part, but the mistakes they made, the 10 penalties, all the turnovers, the inconsistency on both sides of the ball ultimately plagued them. Manny Diaz, he's not really looking like he's going to be the option for the Hurricanes. They just have not been prepared whatsoever. I'll go ahead and give you the Alabama loss week 1. You kind of had your backs against the wall in that one. But the last 2 weeks, they've just not played with an edge whatsoever. Even when they have great plays, the energy doesn't carry over for even the remainder of their drive, let alone the rest of the game. So Miami, they got outplayed in the trenches, on both sides, as expected. That was one of their weaknesses. But they had their bright moments, so it was unfortunate they couldn't put it all together. So back to the drawing board, I guess, for the Hurricanes. They're now 1-2 before they enter conference play. Michigan State, though, 3-0, very good football team. Peyton Thorne, he looked very calm, cool, and collected. There was a bootleg he had where there was a defender straight in his face. He didn't even flinch, and he dumped it off for a touchdown. Very impressed by this young man. He can rip it downfield as well. So he beat out Anthony Russo for a reason. So this offense is really good. Their offensive line is really good as well. They've made some big strides. Can't wait to see how this team plays under Mel Tucker once they start entering conference play themselves. In the nick of conference play, they already played Northwestern, beat them handily. Very impressed by this football team. Can't wait to see what they do down the stretch. Cincinnati, the resilient football team that Luke Fickell has, was not looking very positive whatsoever in this game for the Bearcats. For much of the first half, they beat Indiana 38-24 here. I said coming in this game, if Indiana could run for about 4 or 5 yards per carry, then they would have a pretty good shot of winning this football game because, their offensive line and their running game is it's among the conference's worst, So let it just be the truth told there. And they did exactly that, though. 152 yards rushing, right on the 4 yards per carry dot. They didn't take advantage of the mistakes made by Cincinnati, though. They probably should have been up 21-0 at one point in this game. They got stopped on a 4th and 1 in the first half. And then they had the big targeting call on Micah McFadden. It was going to be 4th down for Cincinnati right before the half. Mike McFadden gets ejected on kind of a bogus targeting call. They went down and scored a touchdown, and they were able to go into the half 10-14. They were down by just a couple of points. Penix also in the first half had an interception in the red zone. They just too many mistakes Indiana made here in the second half. They were unable to deliver for Tom Allen. They got outscored 28-10 in the second half. Cincinnati 15 points came in that fourth quarter. Ritter and the offense were able to close. The defense really got to them, though. They had 4 straight drives where they didn't have a first down to start the game. This defense came to play, as I expected it to. I felt like the Hoosier defense would show up today. And then once McFadden went out, it was a completely different story. Ritter, overall, though, played very well. He made a lot of good throws downfield. Jerome Ford was able to stay up for a couple of scores. They weren't able to get a great push on the offensive line throughout the day, though. The disguises and the stunts this defense was coming at them with, it had them fooled all day long for the most part. They were able to step up late. Penix, though, his passing attack still kind of struggling to find their niche. 17 of 40 for Penix, another 3 interception game. Those interceptions really just came off complete nonsense. The one in the red zone, the ones late in the game as well. He's just throwing it up there, really. I'm not really sure what to say against Penix. He's trying to get his confidence back from that ACL tear. 3 in a row he's had. But just that doesn't excuse you from bad decision making. Overall, this was a very good game for Indiana. The teams, the Big Ten's going to know that they were here to play. The entire nation knows they showed up to play today. They outgained Cincinnati. They were better on third down than they were. Overall, they were better at running the ball too. Cincinnati had a lot of penalties themselves, but overall, 4 turnovers for Indiana plagued them. They had one. Inside the 5-yard line, they had a fumble. So just too many missed opportunities for the Hoosiers, and that allows the Bearcats to propel here as they prepare for Notre Dame in 2 weeks. I'd like to see this team get a better push up front, though. I'd like to see them not have as many penalties. I think they had a couple of false starts in that first half because they're going to need to run the ball better. I have confidence in Ritter being able to deliver with his arm, but they'd like to do it off play action, off those bootlegs, with not as many bodies in the back end. Overall, this was a fun game to watch. I picked the Hoosiers to win this one, and they had it there for a little bit. This is, then they also gave up a special teams touchdown as well. Just overall, Cincinnati made the right plays at the right times, and that's why they were able to win this ball game. The Indiana, they really showed up today, though. So credit to Tom Allen's ball club, but just too many mistakes in the end. Ohio State 41, Tulsa 20. The score was not even as close. The game was a lot closer. It was a one-possession game for most of the contest. They got torched, the Buckeyes, for over 400 passing yards. once again. Davis Brent had a great game, 428, 2 scores. He also had 2 picks as well. But overall, it wasn't a great game from Ohio State. Their defense was stagnant again. In the secondary, a lot of guys just, again, wide open. Good plays from a lot of the receivers. Credit will be due to Tulsa. But Ohio State, they lost Josh Proctor for the year in last week's game, so now they got to fill the void at safety. Still, a lot of young players still trying to come into their own. You're not seeing any progress here whatsoever. The linebackers as well. I mean, they did better against the run today. Deneric Prince is a good running back, so they did a pretty good job of keeping him in check. But it's really the entire defense. There's no pass rush either. If you had a better pass rush, then you wouldn't be getting inflamed in the secondary like this. The penetration's not great. Then you look to the other side. Travion Henderson completely carried this offense. 277 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He was my biggest impact true freshman coming into the year. He's certainly showcasing why. He had that big score against Minnesota in week 1, and then here, phenomenal game. But overall, the offensive line was not good. They were getting in the backfield consistently. C.J. Stroud got strip sacked. A few plays before that, they had 2 or 3 guys coming right at him. They weren't pretty much even blocked because they were just getting ripped through that easily. The receivers had a lot of miss. There was a handful of drops. Olave and Wilson both had their fair share of misses. Olave, for the only second time in his career, he had 0 catches in this ball game. So, it was just overall an ugly performance. Stroud had a bad interception of his own. He made some good throws, though, and Garrett Wilson redeemed himself with a touchdown later in the game. But overall, this isn't just QB play. The entire team struggled. As you just mentioned, receivers dropping it, the offensive line struggling in pass protection. They did a great job in run blocking, of course. But Henderson also, as well, is a phenomenal player, so he was able to rip off some big runs, break a lot of tackles, make a lot of guys miss. But overall, Kerry Combs, he might be headed for demotion. This defense really needs a new identity. They gave up over 500 yards today to Tulsa, a team that's now 0-3. And they lost to UC Davis to start the year, where they only scored, 14 points or something like that. So just an ugly performance from Ohio State. They pulled away late. They had a pick six was one of those scores as well. But Ohio State, Kerry Combs, he won't get fired, I don't think, because he's a great recruiter. Could be a good positional coach for Ohio State, but overall as a defensive coordinator, I think it's time for a change. You've seen this all of last year, and they still. It was their biggest weakness last week, and then here, it could have potentially costed them a game. The offense, though, they're not off the hook either. They have not played very well. It's not just on the new quarterback, C.J. Stroud. It's only his 3rd career game, so give him some slack. But he almost had 500 passing yards against Oregon, but he wouldn't have had to do that if, they could have some better protection. They could have ran the ball better. They would stick to running the ball. They stuck to it a little bit more this time around here against Tulsa. And it paid dividends as both running backs did pretty good work. But overall, just an ugly performance from Ohio State. They're going to have to be a lot better down the stretch as they get ready to enter conference play themselves. Looking at some other notable games, Kansas State and Nevada. I think I was one of the only people who picked Kansas State to win this ball game. Played a very strong passing attack of Nevada. And they handled the task very well for the most part. They kept them in check. Only 262 yards for Strong. Very impressive performance from Kansas State's defense. They held Devontae Lee and the Nevada running game in check. They had 23 carries for 25 yards. They couldn't move the ball one bit. They were so one-dimensional. And the secondary held up their end of the bargain as well. Will Howard, he played a very good game. Only 10 pass attempts, but completed 7 of them. Had some big plays, 120-plus yard. He had a touchdown. They also ran the ball very well, 269 yards. Deuce Vaughn and crew. These guys are rocking. I figured this running game had a big advantage against Nevada's defense. Because their rushing defense really isn't that good. Don Peterson's a solid defensive tackle, Austin Hall as well. But other than that, they have some holes to fill in their defense. And Kansas State exposed them, and they ran away with this one. And they closed it out, too. 21 points in the 4th quarter, 0 for Nevada over the final 15 minutes. It was nice to see them able to close things out. Now, they're 3-0 with some pretty impressive wins on the resume. I think a lot of people are going to take note of this Nevada win. I like this team heading into the conference, but it'll be interesting to see how they perform as the competition amps up. But this Kansas team, very good stuff under Chris Kleiman, so I can't wait to see what they can accomplish. USC 45-14 after the firing Clay Helton. This is a very impressive performance by the Trojans. They were down 14-0. Keaton Slovis was ruled out due to an injury, meaning Jackson Dart was in. And they were about to punch it in again. They were up 14-0, and they were at the goal line. USC was able to stand strong, and then it was their game to lose after that. Dart played a phenomenal game, 391 yards, 4 touchdowns for the true freshman. He also ended the game he also ended the day as the team's leading rusher with 32 yards. The 2 interceptions, they were pretty bad ones. One of them, though, was pretty much a punt. As a few plays later, Drake Jackson forced a strip sack, recovered for a score. But overall, he made a few mistakes, but he played very well. The deep ball was cooking tonight for Jackson Dart. Drake London, 170 yards, 2 scores. It was a great, his hands are just so good. Drake London, very physical, just a great ball player. It was USC was able to rally under Clay Helton. Usually they were just giving up down 14-0 at the goal line, and they didn't. They were able to get the stop, and then the rest of the game, they just throttled on both sides of the ball. They almost had 500 yards of offense themselves, held Washington State to 279 of their own, forced 4 turnovers. USC, they had some mistakes themselves, the 2 dart picks. They also had a fumble as well. So it wasn't a perfect performance, but very encouraging under new head coach Dante Williams. This was very good from USC to see them battle back and fight through some adversity, because usually under Clay Helton, they would have just given up, kind of like, last week. You see them give up. Just very impressive stuff, and the freshman Jackson Dart played a great game. I'm not sure the status on Keaton Slovis. I'm not sure who will even be the starter if they're both fully healthy come next week. But very encouraging stuff from the Trojans. Memphis 31, Mississippi State 29. Mississippi State, this is a game they probably should have had. There was a play late with Calvin Austin with 93 yards on a punt return where it bounced down. It bounced down near their goal line. They touched it twice. I don't remember what the ruling was for that. I know the referee never blew his whistle. When I was watching the game, I had it on mute, so I wasn't sure. But they were only down a couple points at the time. That would have had Memphis backed up, and they just didn't down the ball, so Calvin Austin took it. And then they were down 2 scores with 5 minutes to go, and that was pretty much it. But for the most part, I picked them to win this game because I thought they were going to play a great defensive game. And they did. They only allowed 246 yards. Memphis was 2 of 12 on third downs. They also completely, they were controlling the line of scrimmage for the most part, too. Will Rogers in this passing attack finally had some – they're finally starting to establish some consistency. That was their biggest issue last year. Because his passing attack was just not good last year. And Will Rogers threw the ball almost 70 times. He had 419 yards and 3 touchdowns. Of course, you're going to have that when you have so much volume, on 50 completions. But this is a game they should have won. Mississippi State. This is a really good defense. I really like it going into the conference play. It's a very underrated one. A good secondary. They held Seth Hennigan in this high-flying passing attack to only 159 yards. Calvin Austin, though. What a game, over 200 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns. He's one of the nation's top all-purpose players. Not enough people know about him. They dominated the time of possession as well, Memphis, after 20 minutes. Just disappointing way for them to lose this game, considering, they should have won it. They were better in all aspects of the game than Memphis. Another one of those games where they made the right plays at the right time. And then, Mississippi State, they weren't able to always execute. They had a scoreless third quarter. So, just a very disappointing way to end the game for Mike Leach's bunch. That's college football for you. So, the Tigers hang on to win by 2 points. Mississippi State scored late. They got the ball back on an onside. I think it was an onside kick they got the ball back on. The onside kick, the first one, they had to re-kick it. I don't think they could determine who got it. They said that Mississippi State touched it before it went 10 yards. And then the second one, they had a great shot at getting that one as well. They couldn't get it either of the onside kicks. Memphis hit a field goal. Mississippi State went right downfield and scored, but it was an 8-point game, so they had to go for 2, and they were just a couple yards short. Just missed opportunities for Mississippi State. That punt touchdown Memphis had. They also had a fumble touchdown as well. There's another drive that was less than 40 yards that led to a Memphis touchdown. They capitalized off a short field on you just couldn't really ask for more from Mississippi State other than they just didn't make the right plays at the right times, and Memphis did. They gave the Tigers opportunities, and they were able to capitalize on them, so all credit is due to Ryan Silverfield's football team. Minnesota routed Colorado 30-0. I picked Colorado to win this game. I feel like Minnesota they don't have a pass rush really at all. In Colorado, I feel like their passing attack has just been not good at all so far this season. Brendan Lewis cannot find anything downfield. I felt like he would have some time in this game, and I also feel like they'd be able to run the ball as well. None of that was true. They got shut out. Negative 19 yards rushing, 55 yards passing. Just when you're looking at it, just makes no sense how Colorado played this poor today. Minnesota, Trey Potts was able to run behind that phenomenal offensive line. And, 121 yards, 3 scores for Potts. Tanner Morgan is also efficient as well. So a good game from Minnesota. Overall, very disappointing from Colorado. Their offense did them 0 favors, 63 total yards. It's not like they're playing an elite defense by any means. Again, no pass rush for Minnesota. They should have been able to have some success throwing. They should have been able to have some success running as well. They did very well against the strong Texas A&M front a week ago. They turn around and just completely get blown out the water by Minnesota. Very ugly game for the Buffaloes, and Carl Dorrell's going to have some questions to answer because Brendan Lewis, this is 3 games in a row now. They just can't throw the ball to save their life. And they have some good weapons, Brendan Rice, Dimitri Stanley. So it's not like they're lacking pass catchers. They're just lacking, their quarterback having will to throw the ball. They're just lacking skill maybe. Lewis is very young because, from the film I watched last year in the Alamo Bowl where he came in late, he made some good throws. Had some good habits to him. But so far this year, it's just been terrible. They cannot throw the ball to save their lives. They would have probably beat A&M if they could have just thrown the ball just a smidge better. But, so Minnesota 30-0 on Colorado. Notre Dame 27, Purdue 13. The lower scoring than I expected in this game. Notre Dame, they were able to do what I thought they would do. I feel like they'd have a little bit of balance. Running the ball, Kyron Williams was able to do that. Anyone else who touched the ball running? No, they weren't. Chris Tyree didn't do anything. Buckner, he had a 20-yard carry, I believe. But other than that, it was the Cohen show again on offense. He played very well. He was effective. He had 2 scores. They made some big plays downfield. And Williams had a 50-yard touchdown himself. Avery Davis had a 60-plus yarder. And they were able to withhold a strong Purdue offense. They didn't get as many big plays as I thought they would. It's encouraging because of the first 2 games, that's all they've been giving up is giant plays against the opposing offense. They didn't play a great defense in Purdue, though. I feel like they would have been able to do a little bit more. They had a solid balance, but, Kyron Williams, a chunk of his yardage came off that one big run. Aiden O'Connell came in the game late, and he had 2 interceptions. That kind of sealed the deal for Notre Dame. Overall, Notre Dame, they're still trying to hit that stride. They're still struggling to replace their offensive line, which is a little shocking, which translates to the poor running game and their defense. Much better in the trenches here this afternoon against Purdue. But the pass and they handled the passing game pretty admirably. David Bell was kind of held in check, and Plummer wasn't very effective. I think he 25 completions for less than 200 yards, so it wasn't exactly an effective passing game. So a very good performance from the Notre Dame defense, at least in my opinion. But they play Wisconsin next week in Chicago, and it feels like it's kind of bad news bears for this team. It'll be interesting to see if they show up or not, because through 3 weeks they've just been not impressive at all, and they're about to enter a completely daunting stretch. So Notre Dame will have to turn up the heat a little bit, but they're really going to have their backs against the wall across the next 5 weeks. We're going to have some other ranked teams fared. Iowa 30-7 over Kent State. Tyler Goodson had 150-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. The Golden Flashers, I think it would have been a 1-point game or a tied game. They were at the goal line, and instead of scoring, they fumbled right on the goal line. That pretty much dashed their chances of trying to put an upset bid to the Hawkeyes. Another good win for them. And that is a really good Kent State offense. They only allowed them to 7 points. Clemson, Georgia Tech, 14-8. Clemson had a late safety they took to give Georgia Tech 2 more points, but they went right downfield, had a field goal late that made it 14-6. They recovered the onside kick, went downfield, and they got stopped on 4th and goal. Clemson has yet to allow a touchdown yet this year. Again, though, their offense is completely struggling. DJ Ungole, not very effective at all passing. He had a fumble as well, running. Will Shipley got a little bit more involved in this game, but overall, Clemson's offense is just a complete nightmare. Tony Elliott with the play calling has been very questionable. No continuity at all between the pass catchers and Ungole. It's just an ugly performance away from the Tigers on offense this year, regardless of who they're playing. Georgia or an FCS school or even the Yellow Jackets. They just have not been able to get it going on offense. They play at NC State next week. That could be some trouble for them, as that's a tough defense as well. Texas A&M down New Mexico 34-0. Zach Calzada starting to come into his own a little bit. Figured he would when they started to tailor the game plan around him. They play Arkansas next week in Arlington, so we'll see if he's up for that challenge. They didn't play a good New Mexico State team here today. Deontay Demas, though, he showed up. His first career catch was a 70-yard touchdown, so congratulations to him. He was not able to play last season. Seeing him get on the field, it's pretty cool to see the former highly regarded recruit finally get on the field. He's going to be a big part of their offense moving forward. Coastal Carolina, they were able to outlast Buffalo 28-25. No shocker to see this one close. I expected them to win by, I expected them to cover the spread of 10.5. But this is a tough Buffalo team. They did give up 500 yards of defense to Nebraska, so I feel like Coastal Carolina would be a little bit better in terms of production offensively. But no shock at all. This is a tough Buffalo team, even with their head coach going to Kansas. McDuffie, Kevin Marks, they still got some strong running backs. And Coastal Carolina, they scored 7 points exactly in each quarter, so very nice to see some consistency there. They almost had 450 yards of offense. Nice balance as well. McCall, he remains very efficient. Almost over 12 yards per pass. He had 13 completions for 233. Very good game from Coastal Carolina. They were down 14-7 early, and they were able to withstand the Buffalo Bulls attack for the most part. This is a very interesting team, though. The last 2 weeks, though, their defense has been the jury's still kind of out on them, which is kind of shocking because they returned a lot, especially on the defensive line, and Brewer and Gardner. So it's going to be a fun team to watch down the stretch because, when they enter Sun Belt play, there's going to be a lot of eyes on them. But they were able to withhold the attack, and it never, even though they were only won by 3, it never felt like they were ever in really jeopardy of losing this game. Because after the first quarter, they kind of took hold of it. So Arkansas 45, Georgia Southern 10. Over 600 yards of offense for the Razorbacks. They really ran it up in this one. Multiple different players were touching the ball on the ground. Traylon Burks had a 91-yard touchdown through the air. KG Jefferson himself, 366, 3 scores. They were just running it up in this one, just as they prepare for Texas A&M. They're going to be a very trendy pick going in the next week, and they're probably going to be on my selection of picks as well. Very good Arkansas team. They're really controlling the trench as well against Texas. That's what they did phenomenally. I had a lot of question marks about their defensive line mainly going to that game. So I feel like Sam Pittman wanted to anchor up that offensive line just well, but their D-line against Texas was just phenomenal, consistently getting in the backfield. And that's going to take them a long way heading into the season. They're ranked 20th right now. They're undefeated. So as they enter conference play, they're going to be a fun team to watch. And it kind of starts next week with A&M as they can really make some noise. Michigan, 63-10. I don't really care who Michigan's playing. Anytime they can score 60 points on a FBS school, it's pretty impressive. 600 yards. Once again, they ran the ball phenomenally well. Blake Corum, another 3-touchdown, 100-plus yard game. 373 rushing for Michigan. A very good game from them. Their defense is really playing with authority as well. They get Rutgers next week, so conference play will begin for Michigan. But Harbaugh, you can tell he's really excited about this team, and I think the fan base is as well. So am I. Really like what these guys are doing. Usually this is another one of those games, kind of like Western Michigan week 1, too. You feel like they just come out flat and they wouldn't look good. Win by, maybe a couple of points. Or, maybe like 14, 17 points. Something just not very, something underwhelming. But they've so far been blasting people in the mouth. Whether it be a Washington defense that's really good or just a basic NIU football team. So very encouraging stuff from the 25th ranked Spartan or Wolverines. Penn State held off Auburn 28-20 in the whiteout game. This was a fun game. We were curious as to what improvements Bo Nix has made under Mike Bobo. And this was a hostile road environment. He's really struggled with these throughout the year. Throughout his career, really. 21-37, 185. I thought you saw some of those progressions, though. He didn't hold the ball as much. He didn't just stare down a single receiver. There was a third down play where instead of firing it away like he usually would by make a bad play by doing so, he tucked it in, ran away. Most of the time when he's a very good athlete when he runs. A lot of the time, though, he's evading. Here, he wasn't just evading. He was escaping the pocket, looking to make a play. He wasn't evading rushing defenders. I think I was pretty, he handled the challenge admirably. I was pretty impressed with Mo Nix. He made some really good throws downfield. The stat sheet doesn't really show it. But, of course, that's not all that matters. I think he made some really good throws down the field, despite having a lot of inexperience at receiver. I think they weathered that storm pretty well also, with Kobe Hudson, John Samuel, Schneider, Demetrius Robertson. They all kind of they all had 4+ receptions. Those guys all kind of stepped up. So some building blocks we're going to work with for this offense. They ran the ball very well. 40 carries, 182 yards, 2 scores. Tank Bigsby, he showcased his elusiveness and why he's so tough to bring down. He's one of the nation's top running backs for a reason. Penn State, though, they didn't run the ball as well as I expected them to. Only 84 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. Noah Kane, he was the leading rusher here, but Sean Clifford played a very good ball game. Completed 28 of 32 passes, 282 scores. The one interception he had was right before half when he was just launching it downfield. He also got hit while he threw it, and that was his pick. Other than that, though, he made great decisions with the football. He got it to his receivers. John Dotson caught 10 passes and a touchdown, so they really got it to him. Parker Washington as well out of the slot. So they had a really nice game plan here, Mike Jurchich and the Nittany Lions. It's nice to see them to be able to lean on Clifford in the passing game because they didn't run the ball very well. And it's kind of been Penn State's concern. Can they weather the storm if their running game's not going? Are they going to become pretty much a zero-dimension offense? Or are they going to be able to throw the ball? And I thought they did pretty well because Sean Clifford has struggled at times to take the reins of this offense, but I think he did a very nice job in this ball game. It was pretty evenly matched, though. Auburn, they held strong. We were curious as to how this team looked under Brian Harsin in a very hostile environment. And we thought, I thought they battled pretty well. Penn State scored exactly 7 points in all 4 quarters. Auburn, they scored in all 4 quarters themselves, though. It wasn't enough late. They had an opportunity, though. They went right downfield, had an opportunity there to win this game. I think a lot to take away for Auburn, though. This is very their defense played very tough. And this running back duo is legit. Because that's not an easy defense they played against. Zacoby McClain, he unfortunately got called for targeting in this game, and he was ejected, so he was not able to finish it out. Overall, though, Penn State, really good football team. Auburn team, they're good as well. So this is a big win for the Nittany Lions. They're going to be, they're ranked 6th now heading into week number 4. This team's really good. Can't wait to see what they accomplish as they dive nose first in the conference play. Already holding a win over Wisconsin. I would like to see this offensive line step up a little bit more, though. They didn't play great against Wisconsin either in running the ball. Clifford, though, again, was able to make some big plays. So, he's having a really good season this far. I'm really impressed with Sean Clifford. This offensive line, though, is going to be probably their biggest concern heading into the year. They're capable, though. Rasheem Walker at left tackle. They have some ball players. But getting a better push up front is something they're going to have to really focus on.